Welcome to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. We are the go-to resource for leaders looking to greatly improve their communication skills, whether it's one-on-one interactions, team settings, public speaking, or digital communication. By improving these skills, leaders can create stronger connections and drive positive change within their organizations. Each and every episode, we sit down with experts from various fields from around the world, just like you're grabbing a coffee with them, to dive into real practical conversations. Our goal is to help you transform your communication skills so you can lead more effectively, build stronger relationships, and make a lasting impact. So go grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's learn together. Well, how do you introduce yourself in a way that instantly builds trust instead of shutting down opportunities? Maybe you've been a professional, I sure have, who leads with their job title, and maybe we even lose our audience before we even finish our first sentence. And if you've ever said, I'm a financial advisor, or I help people with money, only to be met with blank stares or polite nods, this episode is for you. And I have been waiting for this episode for a long time. I've been following our guest on LinkedIn for a while now, and I feel like I learn from every post that he puts up. And today on this podcast, you're going to learn how to say kind of what your clients actually want to hear. And we're going to be talking with Derrick Kinney, a former top 1% advisor, best-selling author of Good Money Revolution, one of the, I really believe, one of the best communicators in the world when it comes to turning conversations into conversions. Every time I open up LinkedIn, I swear he's on a different news channel. He's built and sold one of America's most respected financial firms. Now he's helping client-facing professionals just like you communicate with empathy. Derrick, thank you so much for being a guest on the Speak with People podcast.
Jason, just to come on and hear that intro, I will come on here every day if you like. That was so powerful. I need my kids to hear that, to know that Dad has some street cred. It is
Perfect.
a pleasure to be with you. I'm looking forward to this.
I love it. And I'll just kind of kick off before we even have your story, we hear your story. But it's refreshing, your post about your family and your kids, because I've talked to a lot of people over the years who maybe have put their career first, put their earnings first, and they get to about our age. I'm assuming we're about in the same category, adult children. And they go, wait a minute.
We're both in our upper 20s. Yeah. You look like you're about 29. I'm 28.
About to turn 30. But they go, wait a minute. I missed all those Little League games, or I missed, and now their adult children aren't having the conversations with them. So it's refreshing. Thank you for encouraging leaders to build into their family. So I appreciate it.
Well, and I'm glad you said that. And that means a lot to me, because I just had this conversation with someone. Actually, it was the mom of a good friend of mine. Her grandson graduated, and we were talking about how she was missing those younger years when they were grandchildren. And I said, it struck me recently that there's two types of regret. There's the regret that a parent has when they were real involved with their kids, but now they're older and they regret and they miss having more time with them. But then there's the deeper regret of that you never had the time with them when they were younger, and now you're trying to make that back up. So basically, you live with regret either way. One regret is more powerful than the other and more negative. And I just think that wherever you are right now, I put this on a Father's Day post on Father's Day, and I said, hey, to all the dads, those of you that were super involved when they were kids, but now those of you that are working to be involved when they're adults, I salute you both, because it's hard either way. So I just tell people, don't die before you're dead. If it's important to you, just make inroads starting now, because that's what you've got to start with.
Wow. Wow, that's powerful. I was with a bunch of leaders last week in San Francisco, and all in my age, early 50s. And I was the only dad with children who started young. Everybody else had 2-year-olds, 4-year-olds. So they're shocked when they're like, you have a 25-year-old. And I was like, yeah, we and I don't know, I love the way we did it. Part of me is like, wow, if I would have waited to have all those, consolidated earning years. But I watched those, 52, 55-year-old dads chasing around their toddlers. And I thought, well, I might have did okay. I don't know. We'll see.
You had good timing. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Well, why don't you, before we hop into the conversation, give us a little bit more of your story. Where did this great love for money management, helping people with their dreams, kind of come into place, your family, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, let me go way back. I don't want to be that guy that makes a high school experience sort of their life highlight, but this will give you some indication as to how I think and sort of how I see the world, Jason. So I grew up. I've got a very big nose, as many people can see. It's larger than the national average, and because of that, growing up, I was teased mercilessly as a kid.
Mm.
It was terrible, and it took me to some dark places. So we moved to Arlington, Texas. I'm in the sixth grade, make my way through junior high, get to high school. Well, I have this crazy idea that I'm going to run for student body president at my high school, Sam Houston, here in Arlington. And the idea was crazy because I looked around the school and I realized there were a whole lot of nobodies with the heart of a somebody. All of us wanted to be seen and heard and valued, but nobody was offering anybody that opportunity. And so as I looked around the school, I would see these groups of people. There was the real honor society crowd, there was the band crowd, kind of the rock and roll crowd that smoked secretly outside the gym. There was the country western crowd, and all of these groups of people sort of hung out together, but nobody interacted. And the crazy idea was, what if I approached the leader of each of those groups and had a picture of me and them, and we put that picture on a poster board above where they would hang out, and it would say, "Hey, rock the vote, vote for Derrick," or let's make Derrick
Wow.
president, something where they would feel important. Well, what I didn't see coming was, so the day of the election, there's five other people that I'm running against, and I hear the crackle of the microphone, and the principal comes on and says, "And your student body president is Derrick Kinney." And there was just applause throughout the whole school. And what I realized was, yes, was it a goal that I had to win? Yes. But what really happened, Jason, was everybody won that day because suddenly everybody had a voice and they felt like they were part of something bigger. And it was
Wow.
that lesson that even we just had a class reunion like 5 years ago. And I was shocked by the number of my fellow students who I hadn't seen in years said, "Hey, Derek, you remember the election?" I'm like, we're grown adults now, mid 50s, and they remember the election back in high school. And what I realized was people attach emotion and feeling to things that give them value.
Wow.
And the lesson I took away from that was I didn't have to be the smartest or the best looking or the most well connected. I just needed to make people feel seen and heard and valued. And that lesson then took me into business as a financial advisor. And I realized, hey, I want to give back to local education. But as long as I make people feel like they're part of something bigger, always have a cause that I'm part of and I care deeply about, people are attracted to people that have a cause like a magnet, especially high net worth people. But also your clients, they could work with any advisor, but they want to work with someone who makes them feel heard and seen and valued. The same principles that allowed me to become student body president and people feel like they were part of something allowed me to build a business. So what it taught me was basically all of us are high school students at heart. And as long as you remember that, you can build a very successful business.
Wow. Wow. Powerful. Yeah. I spent years speaking in assemblies in schools. So middle school students and high school students. And if you want to feel really good about yourself as an adult, stand in front of 800 middle schoolers because they'll, they'll let you know pretty quick. But someone asked me not too long ago, a speaker, a leader who wants to be a speaker, I'm coaching them how to kind of get started. And they said, what's the difference between, speaking in front of middle school or high schoolers and now, corporate space with financial advisors and sales professionals? And I said, really, the biggest difference is their suits probably just a little bit nicer. What they're wearing is a little bit nicer. The amazing thing is internally, they're still looking for exactly what you talked about. It's like, wow, you kind of step back into, yeah, they want to be seen and known and they want to do something. So it's just powerful that you kind of kick us off that way. I wanted to ask you, so I've been on this kind of journey this summer and as I've been reading your posts, I kind of wanted to kick off with this, but there's the old saying, people do business with who they know, like, and trust. Know, like, and trust. Know, like, and trust. And so I'm like, yeah, of course. Like that's the kind of way. But lately, I've kind of been in this process of like, is no like and trust enough? Trust, obviously, yes. But, I've been tweaking around, just with that. And so I was just curious on the outset. What do you think? Is that the no like and trust? Is that something that has driven you these years, especially as you just talked about, helping build value? Is there something more to it? Is there, something that we're missing from that equation? Just curious what you think.
Well, there's something missing. And the problem that we have is that if you want to make it rain, connect with pain. If you want to make it rain, connect with pain. And I was at an event called Jolt in Nashville about 2 weeks ago. It's the number one marketing conference for advisors in the world. And I did an odd thing that people weren't expecting. I brought my luggage on the stage. And I wanted to make a point. And as I began my presentation, I said, there's one thing in the world that everyone has in common. Everyone is pulling a roller bag of luggage as I began to walk across the stage from right to left. And I said, when they're younger, that luggage is light. It's filled with their goals and their hopes and their dreams and all they want to accomplish. But as they get older, that luggage bag gets heavier and it's filled with their problems and their pain and their worries and their fears. And deep inside of all of us, people have a longing for someone to help solve their problems, ease their pain, and most importantly, make their luggage lighter. And I said, all of you in this room, all your financial advisors and you support financial advisors, the real value is that you are luggage lighteners. And that message resonated
Wow.
because ultimately, when you begin to see everyone with we're carrying baggage through our lives and people want people to understand them, that to me, Jason, goes deeper than just know you, like you, trust you. Know you, like you, trust you is paramount and it's foundational. But I now believe it's more in the shallow end of the pool to hang out there. You've got to swim over to the deep end, even go on the high dive and dive right in and go as deep into the water as you can, because that's where the real relationship and rapport gets created. So let me give you a practical example of this. Often when I talk to advisors, they say, Derrick, I feel overlooked. And they say, why is that advisor getting the high net worth prospects that I know I deserve to get? Or they tell me, Derrick, I'm not satisfied. I feel like I'm better than what my current revenue numbers say. And I asked them, I said, let's do a little example here. If I ask you, what do you do for a living? What do you say? Oh, I'm a financial advisor. I'm a wealth advisor. Or they get creative and I'm a dream funder, one of my favorites. And I say, okay, well, when you say that, internally, there's a checklist that people have of what they think a financial advisor does. And they say to themselves something like, well, my mom lost a lot of money with a financial advisor. I've heard financial advisors are very, very expensive to work with. Don't they just sell you a bunch of stuff that you don't need? All you have said is, I'm a financial advisor. But in their mental checklist, you're forcing them to burn their brain cells to figure out what you do. And that's why often when you say those words, people's eyes glaze over, they start to walk backwards, they want to escape the conversation, and you're like, what's happening here?
Wow.
And thus you've been overlooked. So the way to combat that is you have to instantly connect with a painful problem the person is feeling. Now, let me give you two examples. Number one, Jason, if I were to say to you right now, you know how it can sometimes feel when you take your car to the mechanic and you feel like you're getting taken advantage of? How would
Oh
you
yeah.
respond to that?
Oh,
Right.
I've
You
been
said,
there. Yeah.
yes. So you said your head started to nod. You said, yes, I've been there. It was instant. It was this visceral response. Okay, let me give you another example. Let's say that you're talking to a dad or a mom, either one, of a teenage daughter. And you say to them, does it ever feel, you know how it feels like when you talk to your daughter, what you say goes in one ear and out the other, and you get the eye roll?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
you're like, sure. Yeah, exactly. So the point of that is that's a problem that a parent of a teenager would immediately say, yes. So the whole purpose, whether you're a financial advisor, you're a sales professional, you're client facing, you're face to face, and you want to pick up new business, you can't say and sell by your title. You connect with the problem. That's the key. So, for example, let's say that you do a quick survey after this podcast episode and you say, okay, Derrick said, go look at my most recent 5 clients and ask myself, what is the painful problem they came to me help them solve? Or Derrick said, go look at my 5 favorite clients and see what problem did they come to me to help them solve. That's your focus group telling you what problems are you currently solving, but you're not articulating in a way that connects with people. So let's say, for example, you determine that most people come to you because they're worried, they're fearful about running out of money in retirement. Okay. So what this might sound like would be, Jason, if you and I met at a social event and we're chatting and you say, hey, Derrick, what do you do for a living? Well, I might say, Jason, you know how so many people worry about running out of money in retirement? As I slightly nod my head, and the person will typically say, yeah. Well, through our 3 step customized framework, we develop a plan to help them not run out of money so they can live the life they want and they can feel confident and have peace of mind. I'm what's called a retirement income specialist. Then I might tell a story about a couple that we helped. So the whole point of that is you want someone to say, oh, so now what do you do? Well, tell me more about that. The goal is within those first 7 to 10 seconds, you have connected with a pain point. You've given them some medicine that eases their financial pain. And it comes in the way of, this person gets me. This person understands me. This person knows what I'm thinking. So where most advisors force people to burn too many brain cells is they try to overimpress with, well, I'm a certified financial planner. And that sounds so good as it rolls off the tongue, but it means nothing to the person. I'm a fiduciary. And all of that's very important, but it
Yep.
means nothing to the person. I went to Notre Dame. I went to Brown University. Doesn't mean anything. You know, we have advanced products and services that most advisors don't have access to. Who cares? What I care about is, do you understand my pain? If you go to the doctor and before you even speak, the doctor says, here's what you need. Well, you're going to say, well, aren't you going to listen to what's bothering me so you can assess my pain? No, here's what I think you need. So where advisors blow it and they get overlooked and they get mistaken for just another quote financial advisor is they sound like every other financial advisor. Keep doing that and you will not grow and you will slow. And I believe you deserve better than that.
Wow. 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 What a masterclass. I can't even, like, I'm putting myself into all the rooms, right? I've been in BNI rooms and Chamber of Commerce and, Rotary, whatever it is, all the networking events, and how many lost opportunities there are around the room. Well, I'm a carpet salesman and I'm like, what you just gave us right there is, I mean, could help improve, everyone's business if they were able. That's why I'm so passionate about the power of communication. And, one of the things I'll be super selfish here for a second, why I love having guests like you on, every bit of communication through the process. Like, we connected over LinkedIn, I've messaged with your assistant, you and I have messaged, talking this morning. What I love about having guests like you is you just continue to raise the bar of communication. And I just see the same level thread of success among leaders who take those steps forward instead of just dialing in the introduction, instead of just dialing in the message. So one, thank you for doing that. But then two, what part of your phase as a leader did you get to where you went, okay, I got to improve my communication. This is paramount. And maybe it's back to high school. What part of that phase was it in?
Well, the reason I'm so passionate about what I'm talking about, Jason, is because this was my biggest personal frustration. I felt overlooked. I felt put in a box when I would say I'm a financial advisor. I mean, let's think about this. When you're a financial advisor, it is no small task to become a financial advisor.
Right.
You probably have graduated, you've left another job, you've career transitioned, and then you get all the licenses, all the training. I mean, you would expect a reasonable person would just start calling you and saying, dude, I heard you're a financial advisor. Can I work with you? You've got the skills that pay the bills. You're like Liam Neeson. You have a unique set of skills. I want to work with you. But then the phone is crickets. And that's frustrating. And so, what I believe is most advisors are either just sold sort of the old marketing playbook that doesn't work anymore. Here, use this old script. It worked 35 years ago. Nowadays, I like to say that tech gives you space for more face to face. There's a big movement right now that says, hey, AI is going to do all your prospecting work for you. Listen, you can just grow a practice by DMing people on LinkedIn, just buy another business. Well, all of that sounds great, but ultimately, face to face wins the race, and voice to voice is the best choice. You see, an email or a DM can't convey the tonality and the facial expression and the concern and the worry and the care and the empathy that you can have with someone in person. That's the beauty of what I like to say that words equal wealth. And the right words spoken at the right time, said to the right person about the right problem, leads to great profits. And an analogy I would give you, and I talked about this on stage recently, and it's been resonating with people. One of the reasons that advisors blow these high stakes conversations is they get nervous and anxious. For example, let's say that after listening to you and I's conversation, Jason, an advisor feels inspired to say, man, what Derrick said makes sense. I'm going to practice my how statement. I'm going to come up with my instantly relatable problem. I'm going to do this. And then they're in a social setting and someone asks them that question and they talk too fast and their voice goes really, really high. And it sounds like they're nervous and anxious. So instead, what I would tell people is you want to communicate like how you cook a brisket, low and slow. You cook a brisket low and slow. I live here in Texas. We love our barbecue, and I love brisket. But brisket is cooked low and slow. And so what you want to think about is the moment that you feel nervous, the butterflies, you feel your blood pressure rising, the anxiety going, you're about to give this great answer, take a breath and just talk a little bit lower and say it a little bit slower. And just the fact of those two things, if you take nothing else away from our time together today, you're going to sound instantly more trustworthy, more credible, and instantly more empathetic because people will lean in. If you talk a little bit lower voice, and even softer, people want to lean in to hear, now, what are you saying? It sounds very important. It sounds the antithesis and the opposite of salesy. So go brisket is what I like to say.
Can't go wrong at all. Oh boy, that's so powerful. I can't remember what leader said it, but especially for speakers as they're preparing, and the average leader, sometimes we get so nervous doing a sales presentation or an update in front of the room, and they use the phrase, everything is better marinated. Everything is better marinated. So the more time you're able to sit with it, thinking through these how statements and practicing them. I mean, it's amazing. You probably embarrassed sitting in your office or your car, practicing that statement or doing some of those breathing exercises, but how much better it probably will set you up when you're in those kind of face-to-face meetings. How about for you? Did it just come natural? Some of those, I think sometimes introverts point to extroverts and go, well, it's unfair. They love to walk into a room, and extroverts point to introverts. What do you think on that process?
Well, what I say is, like, I call myself an introvert living in an extroverted world. I remember as a high school student, my mom took me to high school registration, and I just had a panic attack. I was around so many people, I had to leave the room. And even to this day, I'm able to bring the energy. Like, I love doing interviews like this and having conversations with really cool people and being on television and all those things. I love that. The feeling of being on stage, I get nervous every time I step on stage. And actually, if I don't feel nervous, I actually feel worried now that it's not going to bring out the best in me. Okay. Yep. But what I've also realized is, Derrick, I was amping myself because I was making a lot of these things about me. It was the Derrick show. But instead, I realized the Derrick show gets canceled It's a one shot wonder. But when I make it about the others show, that show carries on season after season. So when I step on stage, and even before I came on here with you, Jason, I was simply picturing one financial advisor that feels like they're better than what their current revenue numbers say, that they feel frustrated by the fact that they don't know what to say to stand out so more clients come their way. That's who I'm talking. I'm talking to you, but I'm actually keeping that
Yep.
advisor in mind right now. So when I'm on stage, I never know who it is. I was in Canada speaking at a big event many years ago. There's like 3,000 people in the room. And when I stepped on stage, it felt like this giant eyeball was staring me down. I'm like, my gosh, it felt like it was a science fiction movie. And then in that moment, I had this epiphany. Wait a minute. If I'm in an audience and I'm looking at the speaker, and kind of picture this with me, you don't see anybody behind you, and you really don't even see anybody in front of you. You just see the person directly in front of you and then the speaker. And I realized, wait a minute, it's not one big eyeball. There's just 3,000 individual people with individual sets of eyeballs with their own individual pain and fears and problems and worries. And my job is just to connect with each individual person, knowing that they will opt into
Yep.
what I'm saying because they feel like my Derrick is speaking directly to me. And so those are the things that I've had to work on just as a speaker, but also as a communicator, thinking about, look, people aren't buying your credentials, how great you are. You're a top producer. Nobody cares. In that moment, you want to buy time to build relationship and rapport. And Jason, if I can add one more thing here, we often talk about the first impressions, but I want to share something that I've been testing myself in my new business ventures, but also was highly effective as an advisor. And that is, I would always ask a couple of deep personal questions in the client visit. And by the way, I never call them meetings, I call them visits.
Mm.
A meeting is what you have with your proctologist. It's cold and it's fact only, and you feel
Yep.
like you're the patient in the room. But a visit is a warm and friendly interaction with people you care about. So when you talk to someone, say, hey, let's schedule a visit together. Just that warmth conveys a little bit higher level of deeper relationship with the person. All right. So what I would tell people is when we're talking in that visit in my office, let's talk about your goals and your dreams. And we begin to have the conversation. And then I might say something like, now, what would you say is the biggest financial mistake you've ever made? Well, okay, pretty good question, a little bit deeper. But what I realized was I didn't give the question pre meaning. I
Mm.
just asked it as though it were another question. So instead, what I learned is if you really want to go to the deep end of the pool and you need to go there quickly, because in this first visit, you want to build trust and rapport fast. So by giving a question pre meaning, it sounds like this. Hey, Jason, could I ask you a personal question? And by the way, you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. And they'll say, yeah, go ahead. Okay, so let me pause right there. By saying that, instantly, whatever you ask them will be less worse than what they're thinking you're going to ask.
Yep.
Okay. Now, they might say to you, well, why do you want to know? I said, well, all the work we do with the clients that we choose to bring on, key phrasing right there, is all custom tailored. And we want to make sure that we don't create more problems than you've already experienced. So all the work we do is custom tailored. That's why I like to ask this personal question. So the question would then be, hey, tell me about the biggest financial mistake you've ever made. You see, the question is the same, but the pre meaning that I gave it was vastly different.
Yep.
And I've done this. This is going to sound crazy. Let me give you just a very vulnerable example. So, back during COVID days, we would see a lot of the George Floyd news items on TV. And my kids were asking, Dad, what's going on? What's happening? And candidly, as a white guy, I wasn't understanding the full picture. And so this is going to sound crazy, but I called 5 of my black friends and I said to each of them, hey, can I ask you a personal question? Would you help me understand what's happening here because I need to explain this to my kids and I need to see it from a proper perspective. And all of them were so kind to me and they shared their personal stories. And they said, Derrick, thanks for asking. Like nobody's asking our opinion about this. And so it allowed me then to build a deeper relationship with them, but explain it to my kids. But what I now believe was I gave the question pre meaning and let them know, hey, could I ask you a personal question? And everyone automatically says yes, but it deepens your rapport with that person instantly.
Wow. 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 I love that. One of the things I say in my training is repeat this mantra: no more boring questions. No more boring questions. And
Good.
what I love the masterclass you just took us on, because the reality is the right question unlocks different layers, different levels, to our client or potential client's story. And the more you get into their story, you can understand their dreams. The whole process is just amazing. And I love that, the meaning to visit. Isn't it amazing when, how do I word this correctly? Words carry such power, and sometimes we just glance over them like they don't. But even just describing the meeting to visit, I mean, it changes your whole perspective. I'm a giant Tom Brady nut. Grew up in Detroit area outside of University of Michigan. And so, followed him in college, and then Lions were a little bit rough for many years. And so I was a Patriots fan, and then he moved to Tampa. I decided to move to Tampa. Anyways, saw an interview with him once where he said, yeah, my first, rookie camp, I'm just dialing in the one snap that I get. And a veteran got in my face and said, you better treat every snap, like it's the last minute of the Super Bowl. And here he goes, Tom Brady, like I'm going to treat every snap. And I wonder as leaders if we had the same mentality with our words and we thought through them, we created, these different opportunities with them, and we had these different powerful moments. I wanted to pivot for a second because you talked a little bit about technology. AI is all the rage. Everything is AI. Talk to us about where you think AI is leading, our conversations, our introductions, writing some of this material. How do you lean into it? Give us some of your advice on that.
Well, this is a personal story here. So I just got busted for using AI recently, and I'll share the story with you. So I had met several key leaders at an event I was recently. I was asked to host a podcast, and I interviewed some of the world's top wealth tech leaders. And I set up calls with them afterwards because I really enjoyed hearing what they had to say. And I took summary letter notes. Well, then I ran it through AI to kind of clean it up a little bit and sent those out. And one person in particular email said, Derrick, hey, this was AI, wasn't it? I was like, well, yeah. He said, well, you could tell just the voice, the M dashes, all these things. And it taught me a valuable lesson. Here, I actually had physically taken the notes, but I ran it through AI, but it made it sound like I used AI and didn't use my personal attributes in the notes. And so what he said was, he said, Derrick, what you can do is if you were to say, hey, I really enjoyed our conversation. I took some notes. I ran it through AI to clean it up. Here they are. Well, now you're good because you've identified I used AI as a tool to help me with this. So that was a fine line that I realized was in communication. If people think that you're just using AI and you're trying to get away with it essentially, like it's just letting AI do your work for you, that can have a negative perception. You think you're being more efficient using these great tools, but they're thinking you're trying to cheat the system. So instead, if you were to say, hey, I used AI to clean this up, here's okay, no problem. Then it's no harm, no foul. So that was a good lesson for me. Second lesson was, and this is tempting, even when I write my LinkedIn comments each week, we post every day, sometimes twice a day. And what I realize is there are some people that will just let AI write their posts, sort of quote in their voice, but it doesn't carry the same meaning. And while it's faster and it's efficient, I just feel like everything you need to do right now is a conversation, whether it's through email, a DM. People need to feel like they're sitting down with a nice hot cup of coffee directly across a table from you, eyeball to eyeball, and are the words that you would say to them having coffee together, the same words you're communicating in an email or a DM. I mean, ultimately, that's how granular we have to get. And what I firmly believe is in a world of high tech, what's even more valuable is high touch.
Mm.
Like right now, I'm writing more personal handwritten notes than I ever have before. Why? It's because I stand out. I was at a recent event, Wealth Management Edge in Boca, spoke at Jolt in Nashville. And as I'm meeting these leaders of places I would love to speak at, love to work with their advisors, I talk to them, handwritten note goes in the mail. People say, Derrick, that is so old school. That's like 1950s technology. Yeah, but everybody gets an email, everybody gets a DM, but everybody walks to their mailbox. And when they open the mailbox, they sift through there's the electric bill, the car bill. Oh, there's a personal note card that's handwritten on the outside. They tend to open it before they get to the house. That is the first thing they read. And if you can speak a word of affirmation, a word of encouragement, hey, what you said impacted me. People are known to keep notes on their fridge. They keep it in their briefcase. They keep it on their desk. Those are ways that you can stand out. And so I just firmly believe right now, use AI as the tool, use it as your invisible assistant, but make sure that you let tech give you space for more face to face. The game is won face to face. Tom Brady would have never won all those Super Bowls if he said, you know what? I'm not going to show up on the field. I'm just going to sort of work at home and let's just do video football. No, no, no. You got to put your feet on the field to be able to score the touchdown. And when you're with other people, there's the shared experience. And I like to, when I call people, I actually enjoy when people tell me no. It's invigorating because I know that most people never take the time to call people. And so when you get no, it's getting you closer to the yes. I mean, that's the way that you've got to think about it, is face to face wins the race.
Wow. Wow. Well, regular listeners know Derrick's speaking my language right now. Just what this will air sometime in the summer. So the week of June 16th, the communication guide for Speak with People and our weekly blog post was all about handwriting cards. And I just continue to ring that bell because you couldn't have worded it any better. Talk for a second about Gen Z. You have young adult children. I have young adult children. My 21-year-old uses ChatGPT for everything. Analyze my golf score. Tell me about this. Tell me about this. What do you, I mean, I love the wisdom you just gave us. Do you think that generation, what do you see? I mean, I'm kind of asking you to, be a futurist here for a second, but, as you parent that generation, as you, speak to that generation, how do you see the tech changing with them? Do you think they'll lean into it more than we could possibly ever imagine? What do you think?
Yeah. Let me address it first of all from a communication standpoint. So one of the things I often get asked by these RIAs and broker dealers is, hey, Derrick, as we're bringing in these new advisors, this next gen group of men and women, they're struggling with how to communicate their value to prospects. And one of the mistakes they often make is they will try to oversell themselves because of their youthfulness. They'll try to overcompensate for the lack of experience by almost making things up or really hitting on, well, this is where I graduated from, this is my GPA, here are my credentials, etc. Instead, what I find is when next gen advisors do that, it lessens their credibility immediately with the prospect because the prospect can see you're young. And so I faced that same problem. I was 26 when I became a financial advisor. I looked like I was 13, had no gray hair, no wrinkles. And so what I began to do, which was sort of counterintuitive, is I would say, hey, you probably are wondering how old I am. I'm 26. So I called it out. And what you call out becomes a non issue. And what I said was, I'm 26. And the reason that I became a financial advisor is I work and I see so many people that are in retirement and they want to make sure that their advisor doesn't die before they do. They want to make sure they work with someone who knows the current technology and they can walk them through their entire life. That's why I'm doing this. And so the firm that I partnered with, they wanted to bring a younger person on to bring a fresh perspective in. So just so you know, I'm not the expert that knows everything, but our team that we work with together and they ask me to be a part of, they've got so many years of experience. You'd be crazy not to work with them. So the point of all that is teaching this next gen group of how to wear their age as a source of pride,
Mm.
but not to try to sell themselves as someone they're not. And this is why it's even more important for that next gen advisor to get really clear on the words to say
Yep.
so high net worth clients come their way. They're going to want to say, well, I graduated from this and I did this and I was involved in this and so forth. That's nice, but it makes you sound like a college student. Okay, let's just be honest. But when you can connect with, and what you can say is, how so many people worry about running out of money in retirement, et cetera, et cetera. What our firm specializes in is, and you sell the firm and
Yep.
not you. You see, that's the benefit. You sell the firm and not you. Because ultimately, eventually people will work with you, but selling the firm, but most importantly, selling the painful problem that you solve can be very, very powerful. I've been in rooms where I've taught a group of next gen people who really wanted to work with upscale, high net worth business owners. And we did an exercise of, okay, what are the common crazy concerns that keep hardworking, high income, high net worth entrepreneurs awake at night? And one of them we landed on was they worry about their kids and their grandkids feeling entitled, having not worked very hard in their lives, and squandering all that they've worked hard to build.
Mm.
Highly relatable, highly visceral. It was an immediate response. And we tested this. And so what we found is when next gen people can really hit hard on the pain point, like right between the eyes, that connects them like, yeah, you get me. And then, yeah, that's what our firm specializes in. So you take it off you. You want to brag on you. I get it. But you want to go to the firm because people find safety in the firm. They find safety in
Wow.
the firm. They like working with a team of people. You're surrounded by a team of experts. And before long, they forget that you said you were 26.
Yep. Wow. Wow. Well, I could literally ask you 15 more questions because you just kind of keep bringing this incredible gold. Let me finish with this one as we kind of wrap up this conversation. Maybe there's an advisor listening, there's a leader listening who they're just in the season of life where they've taken a lot of knocks and maybe they've lost their communication confidence, the thought process of, kind of regaining that. Where should they begin? What's some advice to them? Kind of give them here's some next steps.
Well, I think you have to look in the mirror and say, first of all, it's normal. This is normal for top 1% professionals and those that aspire to be to have moments like this, where you begin to second guess yourself. Some call it imposter syndrome, or it's just a moment
Yep.
where you feel like, what am I doing? Am I
Yep.
really all I think I am? And what I would just say is just press pause and say, that's normal. But what's not normal is people then choosing to reinvent themselves. We hear about AI, we hear about how it's revolutionizing everything. Well, it's time for humans to learn from AI, and that is go revolutionize yourself,
Mm.
revolutionize your approach, revolutionize the words you use. I call it, for me, it's Derrick 2.0. It's what led me to make the crazy bold decision to sell my top 1% business so that I could then give my system and framework and teach other professionals all around the world how to more easily attract high net worth clients through simple conversations. It wasn't salesy, it wasn't sleazy, it wasn't slick. It was just person to person, building trust fast. And we had like an 85% profitability because the low expenses, because it was all just based on person to person, highly effective. So I say all that to say, go back and ask yourself what currently is the painful problem that the ideal prospects I most want to work with have. And they won't be the same as they were 5 years ago. That would be step number one. Step number two, look at the past 5 clients that you have brought on. And are they the types of clients that you want to work with? Are they the clients that drive your success, that make you excited to work with them? Or have you hit a patch where you're sort of taking on anybody, but they're really not the ideal person that you want to work with? Because ultimately, you're doing them a disservice. You want to only work with people that make you excited, that when you see their name on your calendar or your phone or your scheduling system, you smile. You're excited, like, yes, Jason and his wife are coming in. Susan and Jim are coming in. Great. That makes you excited. If it doesn't excite you, then you have to ask yourself, am I working with the right people?
Ooh, wow. Wow. And that could be a whole episode in itself. That is amazing. As we kind of transition, speak of people, we're building this online communicators library. Our, our listeners can go and get ideas for new resources. And so we ask our guests, is there a speaker? Is there someone that, routinely you hear that you highly recommend? Oh, people should go check out their TED Talk or their videos or whatever it is.
Well, my friend Donald Miller, who actually wrote the foreword to my book, Good Money Revolution, is a friend and someone who I've learned a lot from. He's extremely powerful. Also, my friend Ed Milet. He is more of the guy that gets in your face and tells you, look, if you want to live the life you want, start living it today. He's great. John Gordon. These are guys that I've had the pleasure of interacting with that are very, very powerful. And again, what I encourage people to do is at least quarterly go somewhere, go hear a speaker, go invest in yourself, because life's going to come at you really, really hard. If you don't come back at life with what you want really, really hard, life's going to win, you're going to lose. And you've only got one life. Let's make it the best one possible.
That's right. If you're a podcast listener, not everyone is, but if you are, is there either a guilty pleasure that you just, you love those true crimes or whatever they are, or, development podcast that you just keep going back to? Highly recommend.
Well, I mean, Joe Rogan's always good. He has such a wide variety of guests. I do enjoy, as a guilty pleasure, I do enjoy the true crime podcast, not for educational purposes. I want to point that out. It's just for entertainment.
That's right.
If you can like
They're
that,
great.
but I'm not taking notes on doing something here.
And then lastly, you run into somebody who's about to go to a desert island. They can only bring one book. One book. What's the one book leaders they have to read?
Well, I mean, the obvious answer for me is going to be the Bible. But let's say that in addition to the Bible, they should take with them The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. It's a simple book. It's a book of fables, but it teaches the basics of money, and I would submit a business as well. I read the book probably twice a year. It's just a motivating, fun read. But what it teaches me is you can build a highly successful business if you communicate like a third grader. Keep it simple, keep it short, and you will grow a business.
I love it. Derrick, where can we send people? Where's the best website, connect with you, all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, the best website would be successforadvisors.com. Successforadvisors.com. We've got a free download there of the 10 conversation mistakes professionals make and how you can avoid them. Successforadvisors.com. We have a regular presence on LinkedIn. My number one goal is to add value to hard-charging, hungry professionals who know they are better than what their current revenue numbers say. And then also on Instagram, at Derrick Kinney is a great way to follow us as well.
Fantastic. This has been amazing. I mean, thank you so much for being so generous with your wisdom, with your time. I so appreciate what you do online. And thank you for being a guest today.
My pleasure. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Speak with People podcast. It means the world to us when you share this episode. Thanks for liking, subscribing, or following the podcast. That really does help the podcast get into more ears and into more leaders listening. Also, don't forget, we have 2 exciting resources for you. The first is go to Facebook and join the Speakers Group. This is a community designed for leaders who want to grow their communication skills. Also, go to speakwithpeople.com/skills library to access the communication skills library. It is an online resource chock filled with resources that will inspire you and transform you and grow your communication skills. Thanks again for being a part of the listening community. We cannot wait for the next episode.